what more can women do? Walk around in groups, they say. Share your location with people you trust, they say.
You have to do a scout report before you just decide to speak to someone online, because that's how you end up in dangerous situations.
We do everything we can to keep ourselves safe in absolutely every situation, whether we're on dates or at work or in the malls.
To get a better understand this problem, where's the solutions? 7 p.m. It's Topical starts right now. A very good evening to you, South Africa, those watching around the world. My name is Blaine Herman, and this is It's Topical, a digital audience with us tonight, as always. And as you know, this program is all about bringing the people with the answers to the people who want or need the answers. They will weigh in terms of some of the burning questions they have for our guests in a short while. Olorato, the first name of a promising student, now etched in the minds of many. Her memory will be carried in the hearts of those who loved and cherished her. She was honored today. As Minister Sindisiwe Chikunga said at the funeral, Olorato was a daughter of democracy, carrying the dreams of a new South Africa. But those dreams were shattered when her life was cut short. Her life was a reminder of what we can be as a nation when we are our best. But her death is another reminder of the reality that we face when we are at our worst. Why can't they date in peace? Why can't they socialize in peace? Instead, their dreams and that of their families are shattered in pieces. Gender-based violence, seen as a national crisis. We need action, no doubt. What does it mean to act boldly, urgently, and consistently in practical terms? That's what the minister said earlier today. Terms that are readily understood and appreciated by communities plagued by this crime. Many would agree we're not where we need to be. How do we get there? We will discuss. Police are investigating an alleged syndicate targeting women in shopping malls. If there's a syndicate, surely there's a source. How do we get to the source? It leads us to the question of the week, and we ask you, what sort of steps should be taken to protect women from dating scams, both online and now at malls? Let us know at SABC News_TV. Let's walk and talk. Let's get you some context. Look, are we too busy helping people get over the immediate trauma rather than being proactive and investing into how we sort out this problem? How do we prevent violence against women? We'd love to hear your thoughts on this at SABC News_TV. Perspective coming up. All right, let's get you that context. Now, femicide, as defined as its intentional killing with a gender-related motivation. That's according to UN Women. It is different from homicide, where the motivation may not be gender-related. In this country, it remains alarmingly high, with the country recording some of the highest rates globally. According to a study released by the South African Medical Research Council, in November last year, approximately 7 women were murdered daily. 7 daily. And nearly 60% of these killings are perpetrated by intimate partners, such as husbands, boyfriends, or lovers. Remember that. We'll get to that in a short while. What we know and why it matters. To help us understand this problem, my guest tonight is security strategist and former Interpol ambassador, Andy Mashaile. He joins me now live. Andy, good to have your better mind on this program to help us understand what we're dealing with here. Emotive, no doubt, but this is what we're talking about in terms of the footprint, the so-called dating syndicate that police are talking about, or kidnapping. Let's listen first, Andy, what the National Police spokesperson had to say with regards to the latest on this.
We are calling on more women to come forward with more information. We really appreciate the cooperation that we are getting from these young women, mostly young. We have people calling as far as the Northern Cape. We have people calling as far as the Free State. We have people calling in Gauteng that are saying that we have been approached by these suspects that you are looking for. We do positively identify them as those that also tried to rob us, or those that were proposing us and were demanding to go out on dates.
Brigadier Mashaile, they're giving us a sense of the footprint of this syndicate. Free State, Northern Cape, Gauteng, we know what happened in terms of Olorato's murder case, a suspect found in KwaZulu-Natal. What does this footprint tell you in terms of how the syndicate operates?
It tells both you and I and the viewer out there that, one, the perpetrators, the masterminds, take a serious amount of time studying areas of vulnerability where there are malls, where there are student residences, like in some instances you're in Vanabale Park, where you have your Northwest University and many other colleges, that area. So long story short, the foot map and the footprint suggest that these criminals really put in a lot of effort, organize intelligence, get in touch with other criminals, visit other criminals in those areas, and identify what you and I can call hotspots or soft spots, so that when they pounce, it's easier on them because they already know the area, to know the get-ins and the get-out, the exits, and many of those things, so that they cannot be easily arrested.
Right. To what end, though? What's the possible motive here?
Money. People want to be rich. Two, the concept of lawlessness within our communities. What can they do to me? Who'll do what to me? Three, they have lost the moral fiber. People are dead on the inside, and you will see them with how they express themselves during the driving and many of these things.
Right. Modus operandi. Look, flirting, chatting, then want to meet. Sounds normal, right? Innocuous, until it's not. Talk to us about, in terms of public spaces, what sort of tactics are used?
Let's start with surveillance and targeting. They would go to a mall, they would park, they would go to a mall and park and look at this woman who walks in by herself, and look, and when this woman exits the mall, what does she carry, what kind of car is this woman driving, and they would follow that woman to place A or place B. When that woman alights out of a car, these guys are already here. One, to hijack, two, to abduct that particular individual, ensuring that there is what you and I would know as express kidnapping, take them for their money. Two, distraction and...
Just before you move to distraction and flattery, in terms of the surveillance and targeting, does that involve social media as well?
Yes, it involves social media. They sit, they prowl, they sit on their comfortable couches over the weekends and all the time look at what is going on in the social media applications or space, and look at people posting, I am from province A, I live now in province B, I live in this area. The pictures that people take create a serious problem for us as people in security and safety spaces, and they create an easy access for the criminals.
Distraction and flattery.
They would go to an extent of flattering a woman online, or like it happened as we read in today's papers. They met Olorato with mom at the Bloemfontein Mall, and they told her, you look beautiful. And obviously, young ladies and women like to be told that they are beautiful. It's in their nature. That's how they are designed. And at that very same spot, one way or the other, Olorato was able then to exchange numbers with this man who we must never respect for the evil deeds that he committed. In gang-controlled communities, recruitment, women or victims are recruited into gangs on the pretext that they would be protected from other gangs in those areas, only to find that they are going to be taken an advantage thereof, to be robbed of their cell phones and many other things, including rape and ultimately murder.
Right. Talk to us about these false authority figures and forced isolation.
People walking into your premises, your school premises,
yes,
and they would be knocking on doors, pretending that they are from a law enforcement agency looking for particular person A or particular person B.
Right.
At the end of the day, ensuring that they get that particular person. Forced isolation is when they separate the victim from people backing up that individual. Like them telling you not to go to church, not to look at particular person A or B at church. And if you do that, there's continuous violence thereafter for a number of weeks, as survivors tell me when I do my research.
So we talked about online and how it threads into the public space, but talk to us specifically about the tactics used online.
This is the most serious for me in my researches and in all things that I do. Fake jobs. There's a job that has been, an advert that has been going on allegedly by SASSA, SASSA grants and government wanting to employ people at SASSA. But when you look at the URL of those fake jobs, you realize that it's supposed to be .gov.za, but the URL says .co.za, careers.co.za. If it's from government, it cannot be .ca.za, recruiting for .gov.za. The modeling scams, they would be told that you will be taken through to Indonesia. There are modeling agencies, there are pageants where you could make a lot of money in on that space. And they would ensure that those individuals, as soon as they fill in the applications and they are in a space that they control, they are gone.
And this modeling scam is not only women, right? It's male and women.
Yes.
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 Talk to us about the rest in terms of the romance scam, the gaming chat forums. This is very interesting, especially with the youth of today.
The romance scams are increasing in our country, and they are projected to go and to be costing around 2029. That would be costing 231 million from those who would be scammed, women in this particular instance. Also some men. They would tell you that they are ready to marry you, they love you, come let's meet, send me some money, I want to come over like the lady who came from Southwest Africa some 3 or 4 years back and came to Sentin, never got to see the guys, lost 50,000 rands in that space.
How quick, or what's the time frame here? Does it take a while to entrust, or does it happen pretty quick?
Some of them happen pretty quick. Some of them take time, and they are referred to as pig butchering, when they would be very nice, sending you some gifts and many of those things, sending you some little money, so that when you are fattened, like they would say, when the pig is fattened, they go for the victim referred to as a pig. That's why you would have pig butchering.
Grooming, right?
Yes.
Talk to us about the gaming.
The gaming, this is where they would target young people playing games where you would have team players and they don't know these guys, they're meeting online. Our young kids don't know these people, they're meeting them online. Some of these games, they have webcams, they can communicate on the webcams, and they can also communicate via the mics, and they would ask this young man to get away from your social media, which is the next point that we're going to talk about. Move away from gaming, from your chatting, from all other spaces. Go to your WhatsApps of the world, your Telegrams of the world, and they would then begin to harvest photos, request photos of naked kids, photos of naked women, show me your picture when you are in your undies and many of those stuff, with a specific aim of committing exploitation. And by saying, if you don't send us an X amount of money, we will send these photos to your boyfriend or your husband and many of those things. Or come be with us so that at the end of the day, they get what they want.
I want to talk about the red flags to recognize it. Let's pause it on online. Talk to us about what should parents look out for, what should adults look out, what should the youth look out for? Because, I mean, I have a 13-year-old son who games the whole day if he's let. But you leave him, you think is fine, you check up on him once, you leave it for a couple of months, but that's the time that these guys infiltrate, correct?
Blaine, when I provide you with advice online, zero trust with me, zero trust with you. Zero trust, verify, then trust. Parents should also operate along those lines with their children. Don't trust what they tell you. Continuously verify, then trust. But it does not only mean that you verify once or twice and that's the end of the day. Find a way in which you can control the space and the time that the kid is involved in or the person is involved in, the little girl, so that they don't become victims of pedophiles and these killers.
Right, you spoke about how this moves from chats to off platforms and stuff like that. In terms of the inconsistent job details, etc.?
Inconsistent job details, that's what I spoke about earlier on. You get a job that's advertised allegedly by a government, the South African government department. But when you look at the URL says something else. It's what you call, they are redirecting you to a third party so that they can harvest your information, your identity, your personal identifiable information, and then use it to scam you and or use your identity to go open up bank accounts and many of those things that we don't want to see.
Andy, what about in person?
Strangers offering you assistance, it's good, but once again, Blaine, zero trust. Be careful when people walk over to you, your car boot is opened, or this lady's car boot is opened, and he's putting things in the plastic bags in the boot of the car. Someone suddenly approaches and wanting to assist. You don't know who these particular persons are. So at the end of the day, we have a responsibility to make sure that people who want to separate us from friends, we must double check, we must find out who they are, and those who invite us to special corners away from people. And also, when you are in conversations, be careful when this particular person that you have engaged online suddenly wants to control what you say and how you say it and when to say it and when not to say it.
Right.
Yes.
Well, look, we're going to talk about a bit about this in a short while. We need to flesh this out a bit more in terms of, because a lot of these things can happen, right? I mean, people fall in love very quickly. It should be normal to meet somebody, but you saying at this day and age, you just can't trust.
Don't trust.
It's robbing us of the fabric of society, but we'll talk a bit more about that. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, my brother.
Please stick around. Security strategist and former Interpol ambassador Andy Mashaile. Their context, always important here on It's Topical, and he's going to give us a little sense of how we go forward in this day and age. You heard what he had to say. Look, I want to show you something now, and just please bear in mind that this insert may contain some graphic details. So, in the shadows of social media, 31-year-old predator hunted, not in alleys or back streets, but behind the screen, using social media sites as bait. He promised money, then delivered terror. More than 20 women raped, robbed, and threatened into silence. He targeted women on social media where, social media groups where sex workers advertised their services. After chatting privately, he requested rides to pick them up, always dropping them off near Gliblin's sports ground in Durban, KwaZulu-Natal. He claimed they were heading to his place, but once they arrived at the sports ground, which he claimed was a shortcut to his home, he turned violent. SABC's cutting-edge investigative program aired the following expose last month. Producer Cleopatra Jones spoke to some of the victims. Watch.
wathi angenisa ngathi mina ayibo indaba singayi endlini wasathi endlini kabani ngathi mina uthe nje esendlini wasathi angihleki mina ngane ngithe kodwa wathi ngizokubulala ngizokulimaza ngathi sengiqedile wasathi mina usuqedile wasathi lethi ifoni yakho-ke vula iphasiwedi ngathela ngambuka asengibuke ummesi la wasathi vula iphasiwedi ngase ngayivula ngase ngamkhombisa iphasiwedi yami ngasathi ecala ngikhumule ingubo nalokhu ngigqokile ngasathi mina ngeke ngize ngikwazi wasathi uzongishaya ngakukhumula wasathi angilali because indawo esetshanini ngase emayitepisini njalo ngase ngalala wathi angibheke phezulu wase wangenza eseqedile ukungenza wase wangishutha e-private part yami.
He took photos using them as threats, a warning to stay silent.
Wathi ngingatsheli iy'mboni ngoba unasiy'thombe zami ze-private part nezami futhi unazo because vele ngase sengimsendelile iy'thombe zami ngisho ufuna ukungibona ukuthi ngumuntu onjani.
Mbele, not her real name, also met the suspect through a Facebook group for sex workers. Just like the others, he sent her a private message. A few weeks later, he messaged her again. He ordered an Uber to pick her up and drop her off near the sports ground at Cleveland's hostel in Umlazi.
Sathi sifika thina, I think kwesekade simele because obviously sport sakhe lesiya. Ngimfonele umuntu oqhamukayo ke zakuthina afike nangempela afika akhokhele iUber mfana weUber kwaku200 afika amkhokhele abonge ayisha mangifuna ukuqoma hayi ngekho nje ama red flag so umuntu nje oright sihambe sithema sihamba ayisiyahamba sihambe sidlule kwenye indawo njengazuthi ground like ngilo ngehla ama steps mina I'm not aware because kwakumnyama I'm not aware ukuthi ngihambe groundini mina ngayibona sengiyiphakathi neground nje ukuthi hayibo ngisegroundini la ngiyibona khona ukuthi ngiphakathi neground ila sho khona ukuthi hayi sesifikile la yena uzosebenza ngisi mina ha uzosebenza athi akadlali yena ngisi mina okay athi yena ucela ngikhiphe ifoni asho athi uma ukuthi ngicooperate naye ngekazange ngilimaze.
She says she was lucky she managed to escape before he could rape her.
Ngaphunyiwa lapho because wathi uthi uyangidonsa nje wangidonsa ingubo kwasho ukuthi ngigqoka ingubo elula eney'ntambo wangidonsa ingubo mengidonsa ingubo yaqashuka ingubo yaqashwa kanjalo that way la ngazi amafuna ukubalekayo.
The women reported the cases to the Umlazi police station. As the reports increased, a relentless investigation eventually exposed a man who had pretended to be a pastor. Detectives worked day and night to catch the serial rapist. He was finally arrested at Cleveland's hostel in August last year. So far, ongoing investigations have linked him to 27 cases of rape and robbery through DNA evidence. He remains in police custody after being denied bail.
Really puts things into perspective, right? For a full version of this documentary, you can search for the SABC's Cutting Edge Cleveland's Hostels Serial Rapists. Thank you to Cleopatra Jones, the producer, on that. All right, we've got lots to discuss. Let's get on our hooves and try to get to a better place, right? What's the danger? What's the caveat here? The danger is that we could get numb to issues or cases like this. We have to prevent that. A number of guests lined up today. Thank you so much for joining us. Minister Sindisiwe Chikunga, Minister in the Presidency for Women, Youth and Persons with Disabilities. Minister, appreciate your time. Andy, you back with us. Andy Mashaile is a security strategist and retired Interpol ambassador, and GBVF activist Norma Mbele. Thank you so much for joining us. Also, a digital audience on our screen. Please put your virtual hand up. I'll do my very best, as always, to get your comments on air. Appreciate your questions for our guests. We need to get to a better place, and it's your questions that can help us to do that. Minister, these cases are surely eating away at the very fabric of our society. What is seen as normal of meeting somebody new, dating, going out on a date, is now seen in a totally different lens. I could be killed. How did we get to this stage?
It's an old issue. of patriarchy. Men thinking that they own women. They own their bodies, they own their money, they own what they can or cannot do. And because of that, if the woman says, no, but you don't own me, you don't own my body, you don't own my money, then men react to that by being violent. It comes there. It comes on how we've been socializing our boy child to think that he's more important and therefore a girl must do the work in the kitchen and cook and wash for him, and therefore a girl will always be a subordinate to this young boy within a family. That will also escalate to the father and the mother relationship. That will happen in this home, where the father will sit and the mother will do everything. Having done everything, will still be called names.
Right.
So this thing happened through the socialization that was planned or unplanned, that was in the process of socializing ourselves. So that is where it comes from. But also it comes from the history. This violence in South Africa, it comes from the history. I think we did not deal with the violence that we brought before our democracy to where we are today.
Right.
In South Africa, unlike other countries, people will break into your house when you are in the house, and they will shoot and kill you and take whatever. Other countries, even where there's crime, they will get into your house when you are not in the house.
Right.
And they will take whatever that they want to take, but they will not rape, they will not kill.
Yes.
So you've got a violent society. That to the extent that we can be very immune to these things. Olorato has died, yes, but then of course we continue with our lives, we move on, etc., etc. But she's not even the only one.
Yes.
She's not the only one. The Deputy Minister of Police, together with the Premier of Free State, they gave us the list of names. The Premier was actually saying, Cindy, I'm just attending funerals of this nature every day.
Right.
Women thrown into pit toilets by their intimate partners. And so it's a long history, and it's something that requires our efforts, all of us as a society.
Norma, the minister mentioned something very interesting in terms of how we socialize the boy child, and this nonsense, or what I regard as nonsense, of boys will be boys is left at that level, and it breeds the toxic masculinity. Something simple as catcalling as well. You know, it manifests in these issues. But the danger, as I mentioned earlier, is that we're becoming numb to these issues. And when we become numb, we don't act. What is happening? So we understand the issues. How do we get to that better place?
I believe to get to a better place, it also starts in the families. I will agree with the minister there. We have seen, for an example, what the mother of the perpetrator did on Olorato's case. Loving your kids too much and forgetting that they are all humans and other kids are also humans. They also have parents. I always say, before I speak to the world outside there, I speak to my family first. And recently I cut my only uncle out of my life because of one thing. He made sure that a girl child who was abused by the partner, who's a family member, goes back to the abuser. And I said, I'm cutting you off because it means you are undermining the work that I do to say that women should speak up. It starts in the family.
Right.
You cannot be an activist out there, but when you are in your own family, you allow things to happen. Activism starts in the home. Teaching your boy child starts in the home. You cannot give it to the police to police your boy child, who you can't police in the home. The boys start having okapi in the house. They start changing how they walk. I stay in the location. You start seeing the boys the way they walk, you now know that there is trouble. You start seeing them associating themselves with certain boys and dress in certain ways. Parents are there to monitor and to be able to say, you're not going to do this in my own house.
Right.
If you allow that, they then see that, oh, it's okay because I will come back and my parent will cover me with her pinafore and my dad will get me lawyers.
Yeah.
We have seen them doing that. So if we as the nation, we don't start in our own homes,
Right.
it will be difficult for the country to be able to eradicate what we are seeing, because the same criminals had the father, uncle and mother.
Right.
And they are not like people who fall from the sky.
Yes.
They are humans. They are from family structure.
And
As
they
long
trusted.
as we don't start
Yeah.
acting in our own homes and we throw the responsibility to social media only, we throw the responsibility to the government, we find people to always blame, yet we don't talk about us. That's why we started a movement that is called Change the Script.
Right.
It only speaks to say, how do we change how we do things? How do we change how do we speak to our boy child?
Yes.
How do we tell them that if you do X, you're going to be responsible? How many parents are teaching their boy child a consent?
Right.
A child brings a stolen car, a toy.
Yeah.
You say, hide it. What are you teaching that boy? The next thing he's going to bring a Rolex watch and you're going to say he's a hustler.
Yeah. Andy, you know, I was just reading in media reports in terms of what Olorato had done. What more can women do? She allegedly sent her location. She told friends to follow up. Innocently, she went on this date, hoping for love. Let's assume, hoping for friendship, hoping for companionship. That's a natural instinct for all of us. We all want that, right? So, I mean, and then you read that the suspects were out on bail for the same thing, kidnapping and for robbery. What more can women do?
Blame. Zero trust. What does zero trust mean in this space? When she goes out to meet Mr. X or boy X or boy B, women must have two other women to meet at a place that is central, number one. Number two, never hop in a car of a stranger or a guy who goes on a date with you without someone being close to you. Number three, which underlines the first 2 points, toxic psyche of men, as the minister has properly painted it out to all of us in this country. The toxic psyche, men must begin to confront themselves. When I came here, my little boy was fighting with her older sister. I confronted myself. It is not okay that I should say they're playing. This young man was boxing the sister. He's a young man, 3 years. And I said, Tato, you don't do that. She is your sister. First things first, you might be around the same age, but she remains your sister. So long story short, men must confront themselves. I cannot drive down the road and see a young student walking with an alcohol bottle in a hand and pretend as if nothing is going on. I've stopped Blaine on a number of occasions. They would tell you in a township that I come from. I would say, hey, young man, I know your father's name is so and so. What is it that you're having in your hand? And they would tell. Men must become fathers. They must stop being They must stop being men. They must become fathers of all in the community, as you and I have grown up, Mbele.
It seems that we don't want to get involved, Minister. You see it when people get robbed on the streets or somebody's robbing, in traffic, when it's a smash and grab. People are oblivious. They don't want to get involved. They don't want to maybe put their lives at risk as well. That's one issue. You mentioned something very powerful at Olorato's funeral today, talking about the need to act boldly, urgently, and consistently. What does that mean in practical terms, though?
We in 2019, there was the presidential summit. Came up with resolutions, came up with the NSP, which was launched in 2020, which is a blueprint for all of us. It's not a government document. It's expected that whether you are in the civil society, academia, government, any institution, we've got to implement this. Because sometimes when we speak about gender-based violence and femicide, indeed we think about the criminal in this case, out there. Olorato didn't know, but this happens in our houses. The study by Human Science Research Council says 1 in 3 women have actually experienced gender-based violence in South Africa. Some are in very strategic and important positions. They can't talk about it because they've got to protect themselves and their job. But they go home to a very abusive man because this woman is suddenly a CEO and this man feels inferior and therefore he wants to bring her down and to prove to her that you are a CEO, they hear it's me who is a man. But the CEO will not talk about it. But that is gender-based violence and femicide. It happens in the public service and private sector where men will demand those young girls who want permanent job, that for them to get that permanent job, they must pay with their bodies. That is gender-based violence and femicide, which happens in areas where it's not supposed to happen. Then, of course, if in fact, you have said, it is intimate partners first that are actually doing this. So indeed, the NSP calls on us to make our people aware that gender-based violence, the extreme will be your rape, will be your femicide. But there's gender-based violence that happens every day that says, I'm going to put you down. You're going to feel that I'm a man. I'm going to take the money that you are working for. And at the end of the month, it's me who's going to decide on how you spend your money. Or I will work and come to your house, to the home, and you are not going to get a cent out of me, but I'll still demand food. That is gender-based violence. I will say things to you that I will not say to a man. You are stupid at work because you are a woman. At some stage, we're even talking about the mayors. I'm just making an example. That will be recalled. And if you check, in the majority of them, there will be women mayors, male mayors, who for 5 years will get disclaimers, will still continue to serve their term. And for us, that calls for that awareness, that we might be thinking that we are doing what is right, even as political parties, but that talks to gender-based violence. If it is wrong for a woman, it must be wrong for a man. If it is right for a woman, it must be right for a man. If you can say it to a woman, say it to a man as well, if that is correct.
The president was addressing, I think it was 2019, and mentioned that this is eating the fabric of society, mentioned a whole lot of stats. It gave rise to the strategic plan that has been put in place. I want to talk a bit about the progress that has been made since then. We need to take a quick break. I see Ayanda's hands up as well. We'll go to Ayanda when we come back. We need to find a way to get to that better place. We always talk about on this program, how? What's the avenues of opportunity that we can take? More next. Welcome back. You're watching It's Topical. We're talking about online scams, dating scams, affecting malls, places that you would assume that you are safe. It's not, seemingly. Police are investigating these alleged syndicates that could be operating there, saying that they possibly could be breaking the back of these syndicates. How do we protect our women? What sort of steps should we be taking? What more can be done to protect our women? Our regular Word on the Street feature, we took to various streets seeking diverse insights and perspectives on this topic. And this is what you had to say. Watch.
The fact that women have to be so careful in public space, I think, is a real problem. Women should be free to be whoever they want.
I mean, at the end of the day, like, what more can women do? Walk around in groups, they say. You know, share your location with people you trust, they say. There's so much that goes in and every day, you know, like, for example, even though it's not meant to be this way, girl children are raised to always be fearful in this country, and that's sad.
So I have dated online. I actually met my current husband online. After asking him about, you know, his background, where is he from, you know, like what does he do for fun, and, you know, what is his friend circles like, we realized that we actually had a few friends in common.
The first thing I would like to say about online dating is that you can never be really too safe, because it's the minute you post something on the internet, it's not really private. What else you can do is actually like do some intensive research. I know it sounds like stalking, but you can actually do some extensive research to actually find out like what type of person that person is.
I don't think it's up to us. At the end of the day, we do everything we can to keep ourselves safe in absolutely every situation, whether we're on dates or at work or in the malls or just going to the post office. And I think it needs to come from men.
Background checks very important. Everybody knows, amongst the youth today, the guys know what a scout report is. You have to do a scout report before you just decide to speak to someone online, because that's how you end up in dangerous situations. That's how you end up in situations whereby you're not necessarily comfortable.
Insightful. Thank you very much indeed for airing your views. Let's go to our digital audience, get their questions for our guests. Ayanda, let's hear from you. Ayanda Mbata.
Thank you, Blaine. I think the cases that have been discussed today, they actually a reminder that in South Africa, as women, we are not safe. It's either in the streets or online. And it's very excruciating if these criminals are now targeting a social media space, a space that was actually made to meet new people and socialize either within the country or around the globe. And it's always a woman's fault. We can discuss all the societal norms that favors men over us as women, but at the end of the day, we are the only people who actually get the blame, and we are the people who get to be victimized by these criminals. I also think for us as women, we have to prioritize our safety. Like, bear it in mind that crime prevention is actually everybody's duty. We cannot always rely on police, because most of the time police, they only intervene when one has been exposed to a danger. And I would also like to commend the way the police and the intelligence service have actually tackled the late Olorato's case.
Right.
But also, as women, we should know that our safety is at our own fingertips, especially online.
Right.
We should hide our personal information from strangers. Although social media space, as I have said before, it was made to meet new people and friends. And also, the identity verification and checks is very important for us as women. That's all I can say. Thank you.
Ayanda, thank you very much indeed. Let me bring in Tina Bella. Tina, we understand that you were involved in beauty pageants, you told our producers. Talk to us about your experience and what you've learned over the years. Tina, I'm not sure if you mute. Let's just check. Give it
Sorry about that.
Go on.
Sorry about that. Good evening, guests, and good evening, Minister, and everyone there. Yes, I have been coronated Miss Commonwealth 2012, and being the head of the Cultural and Charity Association of Commonwealth Pageants in Africa, it is our duty to look out for the people that we are involved with. Now, just from a young age, I've been taught to be safe and vigilant with everybody that comes along my way. And things that I can just mention to the women out there, even the mothers teaching their kids from a young age, is when you go out, dress appropriately. Don't go out on the first date alone with a person. Be sure that you have something in your handbag that you can use as a weapon, maybe mace or a pepper spray or something like that, or even a key. A key can be a handy weapon.
Tina, let me just pick up something before you move on. When you say dress appropriately, look, the pushback would be a woman is allowed to use whatever they want, and it shouldn't, men shouldn't feel the need to violate them. depending on what they're wearing. So what do you mean by appropriate?
Well, if you go out to a bar, if you want, I might be a bit old-fashioned, but if you want to be a lady, then be a lady. Don't be somebody that looks like a lady, but or do you think you are a pickup for somebody? Don't be like that. If you really want to be safe, be a lady. You are a woman, after all. You're not a man. All right. It is difficult to explain to someone if they are young, because if you're young, you're a toddler, you're a rebel, or whatever the case may be. But when you grow up and you grow older, mothers and teachers should explain to the person, listen, this is what's going to happen to your body. You're going to get different stages of your life, and you have to realize that you have to protect yourself. You can't always rely on us to protect you. So teach your children to dress appropriately. If you go out with a boy for the first time, don't put on shorts or anything like that that is going to give him ideas.
Tina, Bella, just pause it there. I'm going to come to you in a short while, but Ayanda, you just caught my eye because your eyes were rolling so far back that I was afraid it's going to get stuck there. Why?
Sorry, Plain. Sorry about that, Plain. I have naturally rolling eyes, but this is very excruciating matter, especially for us as young girls, as people who are gonna have children tomorrow. What is it that are we going to teach our children? If I were to raise a boy child, what is it that I'm going to say? Or where in the world can I hide this boy from this cruel world, this cruelty? What is it that I can teach my young girl if I were to get a girl child? So it's very excruciating, but as I have said, it's up to us as women to protect ourselves, either on the social space or on the streets. And I would like to actually add on what Ms. Tina has actually said on the decency. Yes, as a woman, I'm not, maybe it's because I'm Zulu, but as a woman, I believe that decency is very important so that you do not attract a particular attention that I would not mention here. So like being decent and respecting yourself and your body, although it doesn't guarantee you that you will not be a target of any sexual violence. But being decent is important.
Carmen, agree, disagree?
Hi, Blaine. Sorry, I think it's a really relevant topic, not only in South Africa, but globally. Gender-based violence is a real issue, but at the end of the day, there's something else that's going wrong. It's not just that girls might be dressing a bit too revealing out in public, or whatever the case may be. This Olorato being an incredibly tragic case, but the women that have come before her as victims of gender-based violence have been at the post office, have been young girls in their school uniform. There's an area here that really does need to be addressed, not only on the onus of the women. Yes, every single girl from small needs to be taught how to approach public spaces and how to keep themselves safe, but that's not the end all and be all. It's tragic to hear about what's going on in South Africa, especially just on the doorstep. I mean, young girls, Jocelyn Smith, another case that is just, it's so terrifying to see. But on the topic of that, I would like to also just address the issue that's being brought to light on how digital platforms are being exploited to facilitate serious crimes. Not only grooming, abductions, but trafficking as well. What we're seeing is that social media and messaging apps are increasingly used by perpetrators to gain access to these vulnerable individuals under the guise of anonymity. And the rise of these crimes not just being coincidental with internet use, but being directly enabled by gaps in digital literacy, inadequate parental monitoring in younger children, and really a lack of regulatory oversight on online platforms. I think it's also fair to say, and I think you'd all agree with me, the internet has essentially become a new crime scene. And I think understanding this link is really important.
Come on, your line is deteriorating, but let's pause it there. We're fast running out of time. Look, as you mentioned, Minister, we can't stop talking about this. We can't let Olorato's case fade from memory, then we stop acting. I just need to give you the final word in terms of a way forward and what you see from ground up in 30 seconds.
I would say the case of Olorato was a typical example that women, even if we are dressed decently, I think all of us, we saw how Olorato was dressed. She was wearing a long skirt and a cardigan to cover her shoulders. but she was still unalived. I was wearing a long skirt and I was inside my own home. I got gang raped. So what I will say is that we need to teach our boy kids that women are not objects. It goes back to us to say we start in our own homes, because these kids, these men who does this come from homes.
Yeah.
Let's go back to the basics of teaching boys that women are not their objects.
Yeah.
Then I think we can move towards a better ending.
Right. Thank you very much indeed for your time. As I said, we have to keep this conversation going. 1 hour is never enough. But we will endeavor to try to get to that better place. Minister, thank you very much indeed for your time. Andy, Norma, appreciate your time. Tina, Bella, Carmen, as well as Ayanda, appreciate your thoughts as well. Value added, no doubt. All right, before we go, here's my take. So much, as you heard, of common concern. And where there's common concern, there needs to be collective effort, not just police, not just government, you, me, us. Why? Because we can't let fear win. Fear can't win. Why? Because fear can be a contagious agent. It has the potential of severely debilitating communities, and debilitated communities weakens a nation's resolve to progress. It undermines the fight for peace and prosperity. So let's arrest fear by putting purpose to pain. You heard what Norma had to say. There's a blessing in that. Putting purpose to pain. Being proactive rather than reactive. Let's keep the focus on what matters here. And that's my take. If you missed anything on this program, then be sure to watch this episode of It's Topical on YouTube, as well as SABC Plus if you're watching a repeat of this program. Then as always, the news continues. Unwrap Africa up next with Tembekile. Until next week, my brothers and sisters. Take care. Bye-bye.